Hi, I've clicked onto today's Tropical Tidbit for Tuesday, talking about the upcoming hurricane season again, looking at some more ideas about perhaps where the main track congregations will be and the total number. We're looking at the sea surface temperature profile here for the Atlantic region. Gonna look at this right here, south of Africa in the Gulf of Guinea in the South Tropical Atlantic. Is still fairly warm, not a whole lot different than last year, but up here in the tropical North Atlantic, west of Africa, it's a lot cooler than last year by several degrees Celsius. A little bit of cool water showing up down here. Higher resolution maps will show you that this whole region is becoming more towards normal anomalies or cooler than normal by a slight margin. And what is important about this is the difference between the sea surface temperatures here and the sea surface temperatures here are a big determiner of how things are going to shape up over Western Africa and the Eastern Atlantic in terms of the Cape Verde hurricane season down the road. If we look at this graph, which shows the tropical North Atlantic minus the South Atlantic, we can see that it's starting to go negative after being positive for all of 2010. When it's positive, that means that the North Atlantic is warmer than the South Atlantic, and this creates a temperature gradient where if it's cooler here, the temperature gradient is stronger between the warm desert Africa and the Gulf of Guinea, and thus pressures are lower up here, and the intertropical convergence zone is drawn farther north than normal, and you get stronger African waves that propagate westward and generally helps you have a stronger Cape Verde season. When the Gulf of Guinea is warm and the tropical North Atlantic is a little bit cooler, you end up getting a negative index like we're starting to see a little bit of now, and that drives the intertropical convergence zone a little bit farther south than normal on average, which keeps West Africa a little bit drier, and the tropical waves aren't as strong because the African easterly jet that comes across Africa is not as strong because of a lesser temperature gradient. So it's an important indicator for the Cape Verde season. It's hard to tell what happens to the Gulf of Guinea. Forecasting that can be a little bit difficult, but the models are actually in generally nice agreement with this. If we look at the precipitation forecast from the GLOSI model out of the UK Met Office, issued for March, this is for the June, July, August period, which is the latest they have so far. Notice the band of above normal precipitation in blue here, right in the Gulf of Guinea, and then this red to the north here indicates to us that the intertropical convergence zone is farther south than normal on this model run, indicating that it would generally be more up here. It's showing it more down here above normal precipitation along the Brazilian coast, showing it being hugged south. This is kind of not looking nice for the Eastern Atlantic Cape Verde season once we would get into August and September, which is interesting to see. Notice though, if we go farther west, this area of above normal precipitation here in the Caribbean and Southwest Atlantic, something I'm going to be watching for, along with the dryness in the Eastern Pacific, indicating that the model is still seeing a lot of sinking motion in the Pacific as the La Nina is still fading away. The UK Met actually takes us into more of an El Nino state by the late hurricane season, but it keeps sinking air over here. Lots of high pressure southwest of Central America, which allows the Caribbean to have lower pressure and the intertropical convergence zone in South America to be drawn north and perhaps end up in some more activity in this area. Similarly on the European, notice all the precipitation above normal for June, July, August over the Gulf of Guinea. A little bit of dryness in the Eastern Atlantic, indicating maybe a little bit less of a Cape Verde season, but then there's the above normal precipitation showing up again in the Caribbean with a dry Amazon, indicating that the ITZZ from South America is getting drawn northward based on lower pressures in this region here. Not quite as low as last year, perhaps a year like 2008. The models are a little bit more neutral here, but they keep the pressures really high in the Eastern Pacific, which pumps air converging with the trade winds coming into the Caribbean, and you end up getting lots of upward motion and precipitation, and therefore more tropical activity. And this goes along with the idea that I've been trying to work out with the track congregations. Of course, last year we had a major Cape Verde season, and a lot of them curved out, and then we had a separate season down here in the Western Caribbean and Southwest Gulf of Mexico. This year, we're still waiting for a couple years now from the Caribbean being overdue to have some more storms in this area, the Eastern Central Caribbean, and get this area in between out here and here lit up. This area in between is about ready to get some more action, and this year might just be the year that things start to heat up a little bit more in there. In general, in La Nina years, the Cape Verde season tends to shift a little bit farther west. If we look at the last couple of pairs of La Nina years that lasted multiple years and had an active Cape Verde season during their first year, the first year La Nina of 1995, big Cape Verde season, a little bit here in the Gulf of Mexico and Western Caribbean. Big Cape Verde year the following year. Notice the track congregation shifted west from where it was. Still an active Cape Verde year this was, but farther west and not as much. This year only had 13 named storms compared to 19 the year before. 1998, another first year La Nina. Lots of Cape Verde activity. It's split off into two piles here. And we go to the following year, second year La Nina. Notice the activity focused a little bit farther west here, and not as much Cape Verde storm action, but focused farther west. And of course, we got lots of hits on the southeast United States that year. And of course, here's 2010 with lots of tracks that formed active Cape Verde year, all went out to sea, and then a separate group here in the southwest Gulf and the Western Caribbean. And this is just a small selection of years during a warm AMO, but you can see the kind of pattern where after the first year La Nina, the tracks shift west, first year La Nina, and the tracks shift west a little bit more. And this makes sense because in a La Nina year, heat is taken out of the tropics globally, and given that this is the coldest part of the Atlantic here in the eastern part, it makes sense that Cape Verde activity will usually diminish in the second year of La Nina, and activity, what activity there is, will be focused a little bit farther west. So we're just looking at some of these things for this year, looking at some of these ideas with the analogs. I've been showing a few over the last several weeks, and we'll continue to look at more of these things this year. The moral stories this year will probably be less in Cape Verde hurricane activity, more focused towards the west, probably more of a west of 50 west longitude this year, probably going to be more activity in this area, which of course means that the probability of hitting the United States coastline is a lot greater given that the storms originate farther west. The lower number overall than last year for sure, more closer to a normal year, though still above normal given that we have a warm AMO, and of course it's a La Nina year, not roaring back into an El Nino like some models might want to say, but probably going to be more along the lines of neutral or even cool neutral as we head through the summer and into the early fall. And we'll continue to see how some of these things evolve. We'll be watching, especially during the month of May, as that's when the atmospheric indices are very important to watch to see what's happening in the Atlantic during that time. Until then, we can continue to look at some of these things. Moral of the story, less activity, but more threat to land in the southwest Atlantic probably this year. We'll see how it goes. We'll see what happens. Alright, that's it for today. Thanks for watching.